Okay, from gold in BC to uranium in Argentina, we're going to be joined to get an update from Blue Sky Uranium. Blue Sky has some of the most prospective uranium, vanadium assets in Argentina, and we're going to be joined by Nick Cacos. He's president and CEO and is a friend of the Global Mining Symposium. Nick's been updating us over the many quarters. Now, Nick himself brings over 25 years of management and advisory expertise in the mineral exploration industry. He's worked with Grosso Group since inception, and he serves as senior level executive for all member companies. Nick's career includes administration and strategic planning for public companies. He currently serves as an officer and director of a number of TSX Venture Exchange listed companies, and he holds a Master's of International Management degree from Heidelberg, Germany, and a Bachelor of Science from the University of BC. Nick, it's so nice to have you back on the Global Mining Symposium. How are you doing today? I'm doing well. It's always a pleasure to be back. Well, Nick, you usually have that really cool backdrop. What's going on? We don't.
I've got. If I can't be in my office, I got to use my imagination. So there you go.
Okay. All right, everyone. Just picture like a cool bluish gold on a black backdrop. That's usually Nick's signature one. Anyway, Nick, it's really good to have you here. Super interesting time in the market. So nice to be able to check back in. Want to get your thoughts after you present on where you see it going on with uranium and the low carbon economy. But you have our undivided attention. Let's get you set up and get the presentation going.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here at the presentation. Today, I'll give a very brief overview of Blue Sky and what we're working, our uranium district that we're working on in Argentina. And at the end, we'll have some time. Please welcome all questions. And by the way, this presentation, a fuller version of it is available on our company's website. So with Blue Sky, what we're talking about today is about our Amarillo Grande uranium vanadium project in southern Argentina. This is not a project of just one deposit. It is a project that encompasses an entire new district that has two key features. Number one, it is comparable to some of the lowest cost operating and largest uranium districts in the world that we see in Kazakhstan. So very, very similar to that. And we'll see how this has got the potential to rank amongst the largest and lowest cost uranium districts in the world. Some forward-looking statements will be made throughout this presentation. So I encourage you to have a close look at the disclaimer. And why look at Blue Sky? Well, there's a number of reasons to consider a company like Blue Sky. Number one, uranium. The uranium market has been really ablaze more recently. The price of uranium is now trending in the low 40s, mid 50s, and it's projected by those who do these projections to be much higher than what it is right now. And there's a very unique business opportunity for Blue Sky that we're trying to set up the company and position it for, as Argentina is a nuclear country that has many benefits for a company like Blue Sky. Like I said at the outset, we already have a deposit on the project, just under 23 million pounds of uranium, 11.5 million pounds of vanadium, but that's not the real story. The real story here is the upside of the project, because along this entire 145 kilometer strike length district, we have the potential to find multiple of these types of deposits. And just going into a little bit on the background, who runs the company. The company is a member of the Grosso Group. Grosso Group, for those who may not be aware, I've been active in Argentina for nearly 30 years now. Back in 1993, when the country opened up its investment laws for foreign investment. And the Grosso Group has been extremely successful in that country, having made four discoveries rather, including the Blue Sky's Amarillo Grande uranium vanadium discovery. And the Grosso Group is extremely well known and recognized in Argentina, and gives us a real competitive advantage. More specifically, Joe Grosso, the president and founder of Grosso Group, been inducted Mining Hall of Fame in Argentina. He brings a huge competitive advantage to Blue Sky, especially in Argentina. We have an excellent team here. I'll just only have time to highlight a few I'd like to highlight also our VP of Exploration, Guillermo Pensado, who's also been awarded Exploration Geologist of the Year by his peers in Argentina. And of course, our world-class metallurgist, Chuck Edwards, who's been behind doing all the metallurgy and process engineering. For those who don't know, Chuck was chief metallurgist for Cameco for many, many years and is considered a world expert in this field. Just step back a little bit before we get into the project. Uranium. The price, it's suffice to say, demand for uranium is going up. Supply for uranium is limited. Therefore, the price is going up. But what is driving the demand for uranium? And what is driving it is a global acceptance of nuclear electricity rather generated by nuclear and uranium that is recognized as the safe, secure, and reliable way to generate carbon-free electricity. And this is required if the world is going to shift into a carbon-free world, and uranium is providing all that base load demand. That's really the organic growth. So there are other factors that are involved, but it's this demand that's ever increasing, which is really driving the price of uranium to continue to go up. Where is uranium produced? Well, most of it comes from Kazakhstan, and that has to do because of the low-cost nature of the production there. And the price for how uranium is priced, it's mostly priced in terms of long-term contracts. So typically, mine will make it a long-term, up to 15-year contract with a nuclear utility to supply for uranium. Like I said at the outset, you know, Argentina is a key country. It's a great place to have made a uranium discovery because Argentina is a nuclear country. All the infrastructure, every facet of the legal framework is already in place. It doesn't need to be developed. And it's involved in every aspect of the nuclear cycle except for the production of uranium. There's no uranium produced there. So what we're setting up Blue Sky as, because we're already the largest and most advanced nuclear deposit in Argentina, is to become Argentina's first domestic supplier for uranium. Now, just a very brief overview of our Amarillo Grande project, our big yellow. Here's an outline of the project itself. As you can see, it's an enormous project encompassing over 300,000 hectares of property, over 145 kilometers long strike length by about 50 kilometers wide. We've worked on this entire trend during the last 15 years or so, but it's only been during the recent few years that we really started to focus and intensify in terms of the discovery. Back in 2017, we discovered the Ivana deposit and very quickly brought that up and did a PEA and a resource estimate. And the project itself, I should state, is situated in Rio Negro province, which is also a very strong nuclear jurisdiction. Rio Negro province, of course, is also involved in the nuclear industry and has an ownership like a crown corporation, so to speak, of a nuclear research facility there. The project itself, geologically, this is really where we see it's very comparable to what these big uranium deposits and districts in Kazakhstan. And these individual deposits have the potential to grow and become really quite large. We see here on the bottom an example of the Inkai mine, which is more than 240 million pounds of U3O8, and its grade, 0.03%, very similar to the grades that we're getting at Amarillo Grande. Amarillo Grande, the only difference is we're just starting, whereas in Kazakhstan, they've been working in these zones for over 50 years. The deposit itself is just under 23 million pounds of uranium, grading 0.037%, and 11.5 million pounds of vanadium. And what we did, even at this very early stage after the discovery, because this happened back in 2017, 2018, when the price of uranium was just around $20 a pound, we wanted to be sure, are we onto a deposit that is economically competitive in that environment? And so we did a PEA at that early stage, and we really focused in on two metrics. Number one, what does it cost to put this into production? And we discovered that it was about $100 million plus a $28 million contingency. The reason that metric was important because we have one deposit, and now as we step out and develop other satellite deposits in the region, that pre-production, that capital cost isn't expected to change very much. And the second metric, of course, was to see how much does it actually cost to extract a single pound of uranium. What we see here is that the cash costs are just over $16 a pound, and with all-in sustaining costs just over $18 a pound. So this, even in a $20 uranium environment, is potentially it could be viable. And just to highlight and drive that point home, we plotted these PEA numbers in that red bar and compared it with producers around the world. And what we found that if Ivana was actually in production, it would rank amongst the lowest cost producers in the world. Now, this is exactly the space that you want to be when you're starting off with a new discovery. Of course, the next step is, can we find more Ivanas, so to speak? So that's exactly the stage that we're at right now. Here, we'll look at the property package throughout. We have a pretty good idea of the mineral uranium occurrences throughout this entire zone. But what we're doing is we're focusing within the 30-kilometer radius from where we have the Ivana deposit, because the idea is we could run everything, like I said, we showed in a PEA statement, we could be able to keep our capital costs relatively fixed and have a mobile processing unit being able to mine all of these. So number one is the Ivana deposit. That's where we have right now another ongoing program with a twofold objective. One is to step out and to see if we find additional uranium resources, and to tighten up the resources within there. And what we just published actually a couple of weeks ago, results, and we're seeing that we're getting some very good intersections outside, so it looks the Ivana deposit is increasing. The second thing is to focus on targets 2, 3, 4, and 5, where in the next couple of weeks we hope to move the drill rigs into these zones and see if we can identify and find an additional 2 or 3 of these Ivana deposits. So in conclusion, this is a great project with a great potential. I think right now it's great. It's got easy access. We already have a resource on it, and the PEA already establishes some viability. It's open for expansion. We're in the phase right now where I think we're going to be adding some considerable value as the results begin to come in over the next coming months. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nick. Great job as always. I have a question here around the political situation in Argentina, South America. You know, that's something that we always watch. What is the general climate right now in terms of supportiveness for mineral exploration and development?
We've been active, like I said, in Argentina for over 30 years. We've seen governments come and go of all political stripes. And the one thing that's been constant has been support for mining, both from the left and for the right. This is a very undeveloped industry in Argentina. Countries like Argentina do recognize the revenue potential that mining can bring in. And in this case, especially with uranium, because right now uranium is imported from abroad, and the government is paying a real premium for that. So I think no matter which way it goes, I think the support for mining and the support for uranium will continue to be there.
Okay, we have another question about funding going forward. How do you guys, what are the plans around funding and how that pertains to balancing against share dilution?
Well, not being a producer, we're dependent on funding, of course. So yes, we're funded right now. I think in the next 45 days to 6 months, to 2 months, we're looking to do additional funding. We want to ensure that we've got enough funds so that we could increase some of our drill program where warranted, and to ensure that we have a buffer to be able to get us into the early stages of the PFS, or preliminary feasibility study.
Okay, you've been at this for some time, Nick. You've seen a few things. We had that big kind of breakout in September of last year in terms of the uranium price, right? Moving from about 30 to 40 bucks. Since then, it's kind of consolidated. It's kind of held up there. Put on your technical hat for a minute here. What would you be looking for as a good entry point? Are you looking for any moves above $40, or what should investors be looking for?
Well, I think the price of uranium looking really good. It depends on the company and what the cost of production would be for each company. It's different. I think industry average is around $50 or $55, if not higher. I think for Blue Sky, we saw in our PEA, our numbers are much, much lower than that. at $43, we're pleased with that. I think though that uranium has quite some way to go. I think it'll be over close to $100 at some point, and it's going to be quite sustained, because not just because there's financial players playing in the market that are causing these rapid rises, but I think there's a real organic sustained demand for uranium that's gonna keep those prices elevated for some period of time.
Well, personally, I agree with you completely. And for the younger members of the audience coming in the industry, you are most welcome. But maybe the people weren't around for the last big move in uranium and U3O8 prices. So when Nick says it can go to $100, the last time leading up to 2007, 2008, what did it get to, Nick? 140 or something?
$140, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a tiny market, so it doesn't take a lot of money to move uranium. And the interesting thing is that the actual price of uranium makes up actually a very small proportion or percentage of the cost of running a nuclear facility. A nuclear power plant wants to have surety of having uranium fuel to continue running it, because the big cost is having to shut down a nuclear reactor because you don't have the fuel. So they're always willing to pay more, and I think that's why the price of uranium is willing to sustain a higher price.
Excellent. Very important fundamentals to be aware of for investing in this space. Excellent, Nick. As always, great to hear from you. Excellent presentation. Continued success going forward.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody for listening.
Cheers, Nick.
Take care. Bye-bye.